Digital signs need to be effective by being fresh. So my biggest tip is to make it always dynamic, to always figure out a way to change the content. If you have a commuter going through space continuously, how do you make that commute be fresh every day? And that would be actually my hint. Anything that is dynamic, that can actually make the deployment fresh. Pier 17 is one of the most amazing projects that I was a part of because it represents really the combination of all these specialists. And in our company, it's really become a company of specialty. We got involved in the design with the architects, and we actually, with them, designed a whole bunch of elements that at first you might not be aware of, but when you look at the project, you would notice all the video boards are flush, and they fit into every single environment because they were intended to be there. And I think that is amazing. The other thing about the project is, I have been accused in my career of having a lot of passion, but I think this project is one where ANC's passion really came through. You can see that every element of what we've been putting together, not just from the design, and not just from the LED, but from the passion of selling it. The people that sold it had to actually work with a whole bunch of people. And what's amazing is to please those clients, to make a project like this really come to life, to fruition, really means you have to get buy-in. And I think what you're seeing and what makes the project stand out is complete buy-in from our partners, from our vendors, to the content itself. The content's poured into the building. And when you look at the building and you look at the content, the colors, the hues, everything fits. Because again, it was designed to be that way. Pre-visualization, that is really the key to good content. First thing we did is show the client what the space was going to look like. And once you've done that, then the client can work with the advertisers and whatever their messaging is and figure out a way to make the content fit the environment. What is neat about the content that they've chosen is they are very sympathetic towards the hues required for the woodwork in the environment. So everything seems to match. And that's because we have given templates out to the designers and to the design teams of what would be nice to have in the content in that environment. So the content is so key. And when you see content that's designed for the location and is actually hue sensitive to the actual environment, it makes a difference. And so what I am very appreciative of is that the customer made sure that everything's been followed through. And ANC is proud of that, and we have a complete content design and creation team. And they got involved, and they really made a difference because they were allowed to make a difference. And I have to say, and a little shout out to the community, it's really helpful when you get the client working with content and not dictating to content, and then content not dictating to client, but getting buy-in from both parties. Because that's how you get an environment to look comprehensively complete. And I'm using some strange terminology in this because really it's the completeness of the whole environment that counts. So the art of it is getting all of it right. We did have some challenges in the project. I think you do on all projects have some challenges. Pier 17, some of the challenges were in the hardware we were deploying. And we and our manufacturer decided that we weren't happy with some of the LED panels. We sent them back, we reconfigured, brought them back, got the pitches right. The pitch is the angle in which you're looking at the LED, and we had to make sure they were perfect. So really, again, in a project like this, when you have a lot of passion, you won't accept specifically the LED unless it's perfect. And so in this situation, if partners work with us, they know there's going to be a standard of excellence that's going to be required. And it's not our standard, it's the standard that's required for the project. And we met it by being very picky. When it was finally done, to see all that design come to fruition and go, wow, it's beautiful, I think that's awesome. And that doesn't happen every day. Sometimes you do a project and you go, wow, we might have been able to do a little bit better. So when you have that project, when you walk in and go, no, I'm happy, that's really nice. I think today, keeping content fresh is hard. We have cell phones. People instantaneously on cell phones see data, see information, and they are so used to instantaneous bites that when you see a sign that's gone 1 week without changing, it's stale. And therefore, our industry must work in dynamic media. We are and are coming out with in the next month a complete dynamic media system that will actually render graphics on the fly. So we can actually change the graphics, the internal rendering, so we make three-dimensional animations in real time that have changed data points inside them. And this is a way to keep it fresh. It was a great privilege to be allowed to write about and be tour director for the tour this year for DSE. I very rarely get to go and look at my peers' work at an objective level. And so this year, I was allowed to go behind the scenes in these tour items. And what I was blown away by was essentially how many innovations were in each one of the deals. It was really nice. The deployments, the amount of technology just in HyperX alone was startling. But then you go over to the Avengers and then you go, wow. And you know what I was amazed by? The interactivity. It was so easy. Everyone could participate, and it was obvious what the interactivity wanted you to do, which I find rare today. Sometimes you go into places, it's too complicated, convoluted. You're not really sure what to do, so you don't really interact with it. But this time around, I found I was interacting naturally, which makes it very successful. And then the thing that I liked most was going to the McDonald's. The one that we've all been to McDonald's, and I didn't expect to be impressed. But then I was impressed by the statistics of realizing those interactive kiosks have made more edges for people to buy things from. And so with the commerce edges being increased, then what happened was they had to hire people to clean the kiosks. Then they discovered they have to have a human being greet people as they're coming through the door. So they actually added people to the counter. And then they added the amount of people buying. So what I found amazing was what a great education for everyone at DSE of how using interactivity, using digital media, can actually increase the amount of edges for people to buy from. So Caesars is amazing because they always do things over the top. I remember going to the Caesars Forum originally when they had the Greek amphitheater shows, with Zeus and all the gods, and they were very dramatic shows. But now when you go outside and you see that sign, that the columns are represented in LED, and now you see what you can do by manipulating the materials that you make the columns out of in real time. You can have marble, wood, whatever you'd like. It is so dynamic. It is so fresh. And yet when you think about it, of all the deployments I saw in the tour, that was the simplest. It was just a sign. But in many ways, it was the most perfect because it was trying to do something and it pulled it off with a sense of style that was startling because I couldn't take my eyes off it as those columns kept changing. So I think the forum really, Caesar should be very proud of that because it was extending a sign to the base in an area where most people would say, well, why spend the money doing that? And yet, but by doing that, they made the first sign on the strip that when you pass it, you just go, whoa, because you don't expect to see those bases change. HyperX is a technology tour de force. I mean, it is a live event, it is a gaming event, it's a sports event, and it actually is in between professional sports and digital signage, because some part of it is robotic and some part of it is a live show. What was more amazing to me was in the gaming world, gamers like to run their monitors at a high refresh rate because they want to have no latency. But broadcast is a much slower forum, and you run it at 60 hertz. And so one of the biggest challenges as HyperX is the amount of equipment on each PC to allow them to game at 144 hertz, but to show television at 60 hertz for all the spectators to see what they're doing. And there's a lot of technology there. So what I learned is that for that feat and HyperX to be pulled off, it takes a tremendous amount of technology. And I don't think most people even realize or even fathom that it's more than just seeing the PCs there. It is a complete production studio with more wiring than most people have ever seen. So I found it spectacular and also innovative and also a little bit interesting to think about this. HyperX Forums takes something virtual and then allow us to see it and allows people to spectate in a virtual world. This is just the beginning. DSE helps me meet up with my friends and, more importantly, educates me to what's available in the market.